My project was to make an educational hub for the virtual reality community of New Zealand. By this I mean one main application to be a gateway to many different educational games or applications for schools. When I began my project, I learned how to use Blender to create 3D models and scenes. The skills I learned for Blender were 3D modeling, but also how to make materials using node systems to easily customize the look of pre-existing textures within Blender. I also learned how to UV unwrap 3D models to be able to use the materials that I had made on them. I mainly use Blender to visualize my scene ideas in a 3D environment to see how they worked, and also to create small models for my environment. To create my virtual world, I used the game engine Unreal Engine 4. The tutorial I used for Unreal Engine taught me all the basics for game design, starting from landscape modeling. When creating a landscape, you have to be a bit careful, because if you allow the player to be able to travel to the edge of the landscape, it ruins the illusion of the virtual world. To combat this, I have made mountains to deter the player from moving to the edge of the landscape. The next skill I learned for Unreal Engine was how to create a landscape texture and paint on the layers of that texture. In this landscape, I had 4 textures. There was dirt, 2 types of grass, and rock. I have used lush grass in the valley to suggest that there is a lot of water, and the dry grass and rock on the mountains to suggest not as much water. The dirt is mainly used to show worn paths between different points, indicating that many people have used those paths before. I added a small cabin and fire into this environment to give a lived-in, friendly, and recognizable feeling for this experience. I have put a small dent along the dirt paths to simulate wear from extended periods of use, to give a more natural feel to the paths in this environment and to make it all feel a bit more natural. I have included this steaming pond to give an interesting aesthetic for people to look at whilst they're exploring the hub, and just something interesting for them to look at. I am using these stone arches as the frame for gateways to the different games or applications to be added onto this hub in the future. I decided to use rock for the arches in this because for the environment I was going for, it gives a more natural and old feel, which adds another layer of depth to the environment. I have added a simple plane with a water texture to make the actual portal. I have also added on point lights to give it a more sci-fi feel and to be able to differentiate between the different portals. With the tutorial, I also learned how to use the Foliage Tool. The Foliage Tool allows me to be able to paint on things such as grass and trees to create the bulk of my environment. The idea I had for this environment was to create a dense forest that looked like it had hardly been touched by man. I also added the ambient sound of wind rustling trees and birds to create a more natural feel for the forest. I also added this to have something to listen to so that it was not completely silent and unrealistic for a virtual world.